I found this letter in my parents' house. It looks pretty old, but there's no date on it. Here's what it says. There's something in my basement. My partner doesn't believe me. She says the strangest thing about a house as old as ours is that there's nothing strange about it. But me, I don't believe her. This house is over 100 years old, and I've lived here for 5 of them. I know the house pretty well. I'm familiar with its creaks and squeaks and knocks and bangs. They don't keep me up at night. But the basement is something else. I'm simultaneously drawn to it and repulsed by it. When I'm away from it, lying in bed, or at work, or grocery shopping, I shiver inwardly at the thought of it. It makes my blood run cold, knowing I live above something I can't identify, describe, or explain. When I'm in the basement, because it's where the laundry and the cat boxes are, I can't be forced to run anywhere. I can't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I turn around, I'm convinced I'm going to see its shadow flit away suddenly, or worse, the thing itself, half visible behind the ancient furnace, staring, waiting to see what I'll do. There's always a moment after I leave the basement and find myself once again at the top of the stairs and in the safety and light, that the relief floods through me. And that relief is followed by a weird feeling of gratitude. That's the only word for it, gratitude. And the desire to turn around and go back down. I've been trying, unsuccessfully, to find out what is down there, to contact it. I pictured it down there, alone, surrounded by damp, crumbling brick, and blackness, and the smell of dirt and fungus. It makes me afraid, but it also makes me sad. I keep it in the back of my mind that I might be able to reach it. Eventually, the curiosity got so strong that I even hired a psychic. My girlfriend was pissed. She said we were strapped for cash already and I didn't need to be blowing it on bringing some hack to talk about energies and spirits. I don't think she really understands that I don't need the psychic to tell me there's energy in the basement. I can already feel it. I just need help contacting it. I liked the psychic. She didn't look like your typical TV psychic with headscarves and costume jewelry and airy, ethereal affections. She was actually kind of loud, almost to the point of being obnoxious, with black hair and this lame little boy haircut. I thought she was about 50, and she admitted that she was over 60 and proudly insisted that she never dyed her hair. She asked for a tour of the house, and I gave it to her. She loved that we keep it as close to its original state as possible, saying that spirits are often disturbed by renovations. She was relaxed and inquisitive. As we went from room to room, I almost forgot why she was there. It was nice to have a guest, someone that felt like a friend. Then we went into the basement. She seemed a little more alert as we descended the stairs. She looked around at the exposed clay and the aged mortar that seemed to be seeping out from in between each brick. The air got cooler as we descended, more fetid. The smells of the basement The musty damp and the mold rose up and draped around us like jewellery. She trembled slightly when I finally flicked on the light, and I think that only then did she realise how frightened she was. I relinquished the role of tour guide here. This was where she needed to step in and lead. She moved around slowly, holding out her hand, but not touching anything. I could hear my heart beating. I looked into all of the shadowy corners, the space under the work table, under the chairs, but saw nothing as always. The basement was silent. I felt my hair stand on end when she came to a door so old and so decrepit that it would have looked more at place in an old west ghost town. "What's this?" she asked. "The root cellar." She very carefully, very slowly opened the door. It creaked on its hinges as it swung away to reveal the darkness inside, thick enough to touch. My stomach tightened in knots as I watched her there, in front of the door. The air was thick and electric, and it seemed any moment something was going to reach out and pull her in. Long arms, the colour of pale death, and fingers topped with nails sharp enough to snap the thread of life. Suddenly there was a loud bang. She jumped. I smiled. It was just the furnace kicking in. She seemed embarrassed as she pulled herself together and turned away from the door, suggesting we go back upstairs. I agreed, disappointed. Before she left, she told me that she agreed that there was something down there. She could feel it, but she wasn't able to get a strong impression of who or what it was. She sensed something female. That was all she could tell me. She recommended burning sage and was taking a bundle out of her bag when I put her hands on her. I must have grabbed her pretty hard because she jumped for a second. I must have grabbed her pretty hard because she jumped for a second time. I smiled and explained that I didn't think that was necessary. And she left soon after with a check that I prayed wouldn't bounce. I was furious for the rest of the day. Then in the days following, I was sadder than I had been in a long time. I really thought she would be the link. I just wanted to know what was down there. It was like an itch that kept moving every time I tried to scratch it. I became obsessed after this. I contacted our realtor and asked him if anyone had ever died in our house. He said no, and I reminded him that he was legally obligated to disclose that kind of information. He insisted no one had died in the house. A previous owner had died, but had already been in a nursing home for a few years prior. Nothing strange about the house. If you ask me, I think the lack of death in a house over 100 years old is somewhat strange. I scoured the internet for clues. I went to the library to scroll through the microfiche. Nothing. I spent hours in the basement in silence. My girlfriend was concerned before, but now she's really worried. and doesn't know what to do with me. I lost my job. I lost my appetite. I sit in silence, clearing my mind to allow room for the spirit to find me, to make itself known. I crawl on my hands and my knees, rubbing my palms along the concrete floor, gathering cobwebs around my elbows and water stains on my knees. Through the floor, in the root cellar, I felt the energy. I had a feeling I would. The psychic had said she was unable to pick up on anything, but her reaction to the root cellar, the way it had stopped her in her tracks, told me otherwise. I know now why the realtor had been unable to tell me if anyone had died. I had asked the wrong question. I should have asked if anyone had gone missing while living in the house, a murder unreported and unknown. The body was in the basement, unknown to anyone but me. I dug. I made a hole the size of a cat. I found nothing. I dug wider and deeper. Still nothing. It took me a day, and by the end of it, I had dropped the floor of the root cellar by about a foot or more. The whole time, with the feeling of eyes on my back, not threatening, but approving. My girlfriend came home and finally told me she had made the decision I was dreading. She wanted me out of the house. I needed to find somewhere to stay for a while. But if I couldn't do that, I needed to commit myself somewhere that would give me the help I needed. And if I couldn't do that, we were through. That was a few hours ago. I've exhausted every channel I could think of for reaching this thing, and still it haunts me, constantly tapping on my shoulder, disappearing when I turn to look. This is my last night in the house, my last opportunity to reach out. My girlfriend is sleeping. She's especially beautiful when she sleeps. And I wonder if she ever thought the same about me, or if anyone ever will again. I looked for the diazepam in the medicine cabinet, but she must have hid it. The aspirin, too. So I took the rat poison from the basement. If the spirit won't come to me, it seems my only option is to go to it myself. As I prepare myself for the taste of poison, I have my first doubts about the basement. Maybe she's right. Maybe there's nothing down there. But there will be.